Good evening and welcome to the Connecticut Department of Transportation Public Information Meeting for project number 70-119, the replacement of bridge number 7119, Norwich Avenue over Goshen Brook in Lebanon. My name is Leslie Ruiz and I am a project engineer with the Connecticut Department of Transportation. I would like to welcome everyone to tonight's meeting, and we hope this presentation is informative and we're able to answer your questions. There are multiple ways you can communicate with us tonight. You can send a message via the Zoom Q&A tool. This option is only available during tonight's presentation. You can also send an email at dotproject70-119@ct.gov. Also, you can call and leave a voicemail at 860-594-2020. And please reference the project number, which is 70-119, and your contact information. Also, you can ask questions using the email and the telephone through August 7, 2025. And this information is also available on our project webpage, which we're going to be posting a link on our chat. So if you would like to use the closed captioning feature, click on the show captions located in the toolbar and then click speaking language and select your preferred language. Before we get into the presentation and introduce the project team, we'll have, I would like just to go over what we're doing. First, we're going to have a short presentation. It's about 25 minutes. And then we'll open it for the live question and answer session. So a voluntary post-meeting survey is available at the link posted below. The results of this survey will help us improve these public meetings going forward. Also, the civil rights notice to the public is available at the link that we posting on our chat. And both of them are located on our webpage as well if you need to access them later. This slide is the Title VI Notice to the Public, which states that the Connecticut Department of Transportation operates its programs and services without regard to race, color, and national origin in accordance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. Any person who believes she or he has been aggrieved by any unlawful discriminatory practice under Title VI may file a complaint with the Connecticut Department of Transportation, Federal Transit Administration, or the Federal Highway Administration. And just a couple seconds so you can read over the slide. And this is the same slide, but translated to Spanish. And again, you can communicate with us using the question and answer tool. That option is only available tonight. You can also communicate with us using by sending us an email at dotproject70-119@ct.gov, and you can send us leave us a voicemail on the phone number, which is 860-594-2020. And please just leave us your contact information and as a reference, the project number. Again, the options for the email and the telephone for comments are open until August 7, 2025. And like I mentioned before, this information is available on our website as well, which we're posting links on the chat option during this meeting. So just to explain how you can go and ask a question using the Q&A or the question and answer um, tool, you um, you can go to the Q&A at the bottom. Then there's a window basically that opens and you can type your question there, and then you can just click send to send it over for us, and they'll be answered in the order we receive them. And now I would like to introduce the project team. Starting from the top left, we have Derek Lazar. He's our Division Chief of Bridges. Then we have Christopher Patria. He is a supervising engineer with the Consultant Bridge Design Consultant Liaison Engineering program. Myself, as I mentioned before, my name is Leslie Ruiz. And from the Office of Rights of Way, we have Jack Carlson. He is a property agent. Or consultant liaison engineer, VHB, they'll be providing the project oversight throughout the design and the construction of this project. And Mark Levesque is the program manager. He also will be the MC for the question and answer session of tonight's presentation. And Connor Oakes, he is the liaison engineer, and Connor will go into more detail about the existing uh, condition of the bridge and the proposed design for this project. And for this project, our designer is Foss and O'Neill. And now I would like to turn over the presentation to Connor.
Thank you, Leslie. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. So as mentioned, my name is Connor Oakes, the project engineer for this project. And I'm looking forward to getting into the technical portion of this presentation with you. So I'll get started. So before we get further into this, we can see here a project location map. And what you'll notice is that Bridge 07119 is carrying Route 616 or State Road 616 rather, Norwich Avenue over Goshen Brook. And this is located north of the Yantic River and State Route 2, and to the west of the intersection, or the east of the intersection with Sisson Road, Camp Road, and then 616. There's one commercial property to the northwest, and then further to the east. Get a little better characteristic view in the next slide. So what we have here is an aerial view of the structure and the surrounding area. What we should note from this picture is that the surrounding area is primarily rural in nature, almost entirely residential as noted. And you can see a little better view of the area here as mentioned. So Goshen Brook is flowing from north to south and feeds into the Yantic River as shown. And yeah, so on to the next slide here. So existing overview. So a quick explanation using the figure to the bottom right. So the existing structure is a culvert, which is composed of two steel pipes configured as shown in the diagram. They're made of steel and they run straight through the road and are supported on either end by concrete stacked block head walls. So the blocks are stacked and then secured together with mortar. And then at the top of the block wall is a concrete cap, which is solid and meant to protect the rest of the wall underneath it. Over the pipes, there's currently no concrete or solid material. It is a earth fill over it with asphalt pavement. So originally, this structure was built in 1950. It is a two-pipe steel culvert with barrel 1 being totally round and barrel 2 being squashed. So in each direction, there's an 11-foot travel lane carrying a total of 1,600 vehicles per day per the 2021 ADT, which means average daily traffic. So currently, there are no sidewalks on Norwich Avenue due to the lack of demand for pedestrians. So moving onward, here we can see two views of the bridge as if we are standing in the channel and looking at the sides. So on the left is the north elevation or the inlet where the river is flowing in. And then we can see here that there are some issues with the head wall as suggested. So there's missing mortar, which you can see by the very dark lines in between the blocks. Above the arch pipe on the left, there is actually voids in the wall penetrating over the pipe and creating some potential instability there. There is also debris fencing intended to block the intrusion of smaller debris, partially failing. Not that it is impeding the flow, but as we can see, there's some large timbers falling on the left side of the image on the left there. Ordinarily, which is not easy to see from the photo due to the season, is that this north area is pretty heavily vegetated with like a brush on the edge of the embankments. And normally you would see the, maybe in a better view, you'd see that the roots of that vegetation is exposed, which is just about the only concern for the channel, is that there was some erosion occurring. But primarily, and you'll see the issue in the right photo there, is that the issues with the steel pipes. There is large holes in the side due to rust to the point of loss of the steel. That's shown in the wall or the side of the pipe, the roof or the top, and then the floor or the bottom, which you can see in either pipe there. So then here, just a quick view, merely to understand what it looks like if you were standing on the road, looking either east or west and standing in the center of the bridge. Really the important thing to take away here is that the pavement is in fine condition existing. It will be replaced, as it is with all bridge replacement projects, to a limit that we'll discuss later. However, the road itself, the importance is that it's very straight and it's relatively flat, which creates little to no realignment effort for the project. And the downside of that is that due to it being at the bottom of a sag curve, so the roadway is heading downward towards the bridge on either side, the water can sit and collect. It was called ponding. So there will be considerations in the design by Fuss and O'Neill to add potentially new drainage after they perform an analysis, which would mitigate any potential effect as described. So here's a little diagram of the existing plan view of the structure. So like an aerial view over the site. Information on the left was essentially already covered. I did mention that there was two 11-foot travel lanes, but I'll add that there's 4 to 6 foot wide shoulders on either direction. So there is some existing space outside of the travelway as is, but there will be some slight widening proposed as part of this project in consideration of cyclists, which we'll describe a little more later on in the presentation. You'll note that the existing structure is shown in yellow. The pavement road width is shown in gray, and then the stream is highlighted in blue. The main channel being kind of in the center, and then there is a little tributary part of it off to the left. So the purpose and need of this project is implied by the condition, but our official purpose of this project is to address the structural deficiencies as noted, to renew and extend the bridge life expectancy and maintain it in a state of good repair going forward, and provide a structure capable of meeting current design standards and load rating requirements. It should be noted that the existing culvert and head walls during previous inspection were rated as poor for condition and thus must be replaced. under this program. Before we get into further details of the new design, I just want to make sure that all in attendance and who may view this later on would be totally familiar with some of the lingo of design components. So we'll be looking at a concrete clear span bridge. So we will have concrete abutments on wing walls known as the substructure on an abutment foundation, which will, for the proposed structure, not be wider as shown in this picture, and will have steel beams, also known as H-piles, extending downward from the footing deep into the earth. And we'll discuss that a little more in detail and provide some diagrams. There will be no pier, no steel beams. The concrete deck will, for the purpose of our understanding, extend to the bottom of where the beams are shown in this photo and be known as the concrete slab. We'll be referring to that as either the deck or the superstructure throughout the rest of the presentation. The bridge seat is where the slab sits on top of the abutment. Technically, that could be considered substructure, but for the purpose of this presentation, we'll consider it part of the superstructure. Moving onward. So here is a elevation view, which we're standing in the channel looking at the structure. And what we can see here as described is that we have a clear span over the river. And this is 25 foot from wall to wall of each new abutment. The concrete slab deck superstructure will sit right on top of the walls and be connected to them through the tie-ins of reinforcement, as will all components of the bridge. This is what we call an integral abutment, and as you see by the orange rectangles extending downward, we have steel piles in a single row supporting the foundation very deep and allowing for no movement of the structure. Given the historical soil conditions, this was considered the appropriate design choice for foundation type. However, our designer will do even further investigation, collect on-site samples, and then make any edits to the design as needed. There will be regrading of the channel, provisions for wildlife crossing as shown by the shelves on either side, and the existing structure will be removed entirely. At the site, there will be grading of new embankments, new roadway reconstruction as well. Here's a view of the proposed bridge section. So as if we were standing looking down the center line of the road, eye level with the bridge. So we'll have a 3-inch pavement service on waterproofing membrane, some reinforced bridge parapets or bridge curbs, which will be topped with bridge rail, 3-tube galvanized rail for crash protection. And then there will also be widened shoulders across the bridge equal to 7 feet. So in consideration of the demand for cyclists, we are widening the road to 7 foot, but 5 feet of this is travel space. And then 2 foot would be what's known as a lateral buffer, which is a safety distance determined based on the roadway speed, which will allow for safe passage of cyclists along the roadway. And there are no sidewalks proposed to be added to the road due to the lack of demand for pedestrians, as previously mentioned. So here's a plan view of the proposed structure. So what you'll notice is that the site itself doesn't look all that much different from the existing. We, as mentioned, are not realigning the road, and there will be full depth reconstruction, meaning we will tear the road up all the way through and then replace it in a brand new condition, even past the limits that are shown in this photo. So off to the right and a part of the surveyed area is another driveway, which we plan to tie the roadway reconstruction into at an abutting property. And then to the west, we use equations to determine logical termination of a project, and our designer will use those and establish an appropriate limit to the west of the structure, not necessarily as shown. From the legend, you'll note that the pavement is shown as gray, the proposed bridge is shown in orange. We have existing property lines to the north and south shown in red. And then there are state and federal wetland limits on site outlined in green, which we have currently are proposing to avoid with grading. It should also be mentioned that there'll be installation of new modern guide rail, which adheres to crash test standards, installed across the bridge and connected into concrete end blocks, which are essentially just the tops of the wing walls protruding out of the earth and connecting to the bridge as well, as described previously. Mentioned that there was erosion and erosion in the embankments, and what I didn't mention directly is that there's a little bit of undermining behind the south head wall. This will be mitigated by regrading the embankments, resupporting them, and stabilizing them, as well as the potential and anticipated drainage system to be added, which should assist with the handling of water on site. So some of the more important part of this is the traffic and the safety of the public. The most important part, actually. And so what we will be doing is handling traffic in alternate one way throughout the duration of the project. Given the number of cars and trucks traveling over the roadway per day, it was deemed more efficient and less impactful to the public to carry traffic over the structure in this fashion throughout construction. So what we'll be doing is installing concrete temporary barrier, line striping, sand barrels, and signage, which will all assist in properly delineating traffic across the bridge. There will be predetermined stop locations, which will be evaluated for sightline safely. And next to these will be temporary lights to further assist in visibility at the site, which can be easily mounted on telephone poles rather, and connected to electrical service. The bridge will have water handling devices installed under it in order to construct components of the structure in the dry and allow for a more constructible project. During these stage and water handling phases, the bridge will be built in sections. So the south side of the bridge will be built first, as shown in orange, in stage 1, and then as shown in this picture in stage 2. Essentially, the temporary traffic devices, the barriers, line striping, etc., will all be shifted and reconfigured as needed to now allow traffic to travel on the new south side of the structure as the north side is built to completion. And then once the stage work is done and there is safe passage over the bridge in the 2-lane configuration, this is really more construction sequencing up to the contractor at the time, but there will be provisions provided for temporary traffic control for the final operations, such as any final paving and installation of membrane after the safety rail and guide rail are installed. Real quick, some utilities, fairly simple on this site. There's nothing underground. As noted, there are 2 telephone poles adjacent to the structure at the east and west, carrying electric communication and internet lines as shown over the structure. The anticipated effort to relocate utilities prior to construction includes simply just temporary relocating everything as shown, or providing temporary poles and shifting the lines. So everything that you see now will move further south, which is the left side of the photo. Some of this will be outside of the existing right-of-way and inside of temporary easements or acquisitions, as we call them, which are needed for the construction and grading of these slopes around the construction, which we'll get further into in a little bit. But the important takeaway from that is that everything that you see here, save the new bridge, so everything you see utility-wise will be back to original as shown location-wise. So environmentally, we do anticipate a couple permits, one of them being the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers General Permit, or self-verification form. And due to the proposed anticipated impacts of the design, we anticipate a more minimal permitting process, which is reflective of the severity of the impacts to the site, and which, as I mentioned, are minimal. And as well as that is the CTDEEP, or Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, general permit for water resource construction activities, which will also cover any permitting requirements and stipulations pertaining to the wetlands that I did mention on previous slides. And that should, at this time, conclude permits. So before I hand this over, I just want to quickly show what we have as a right-of-way sketch here. As mentioned previously, we have right-of-way lines running along the road, north and south, shown in red. So everything in an existing condition is within the existing right-of-way. However, in order to remove the south side of the structure, there would be a need for a construction easement to go beyond the existing right-of-way with equipment and remove it, as well as grade the areas which you see in the neutral color shown next to the stream, which is blue. So all of this is work that is necessary for the construction of the bridge and will occur in a temporary fashion beyond the right-of-way. And then most of the property would be returned. There would be potential permanent acquisitions in a minor fashion around the guide rail on the south side of the bridge only, to allow for future maintenance access to the bridge around them. And so without really any further delay, I'm going to hand this off to Jack, who's an expert and will continue informing you guys on this for the presentation.
Thank you, Connor. Good evening. My name is Jack Carlson, and I serve as an assistant project coordinator with the department's Division of Rights of Way. Our office is responsible for acquiring the property rights necessary to carry out transportation projects. As mentioned early in the presentation, this project will require the acquisition of property rights. I'd like to take a few minutes to walk you through our acquisition process. But before I begin, please note the specific right-of-way impacts are still being finalized and may change as the project design progresses. Additionally, any needed property rights will be acquired in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes Section 13A 73 and 13A 98E, as well as the Uniform Relocation Assistance and Real Property Acquisition Policies Act, commonly referred to as the Uniform Act. Next slide, please. The acquisition process begins once the project design reaches a key development milestone and all impacts of private property have been determined. At this stage, our office sends each affected property owner a formal letter of intent to acquire, along with a property map that clearly outlines the specific property rights being acquired as shown on the right side of your screen. Next, we establish the fair market value of the required property rights. This valuation forms the basis of our offer of just compensation, which is provided to the property owner in writing. A rights-of-way agent will then be available to meet with the property owner to explain the project details, discuss the specific impacts to the property, and go over the department's offer. Property owners will then have a reasonable amount of time, typically 30 days, to consider the department's offer and enter into negotiations. If an agreement on value is reached, the department will then prepare all the necessary paperwork to record the deed and property maps on the town land records. However, if an agreement is unable to be reached, to keep the project on schedule, the department will acquire the necessary property rights through its power of eminent domain. In that case, the state files a notice of condemnation with the Superior Court and deposits the amount of the initial offer into the court. Property owners then have 6 months from the date on the notice of condemnation to file an appeal if they felt the department's offer was inadequate. Regardless of whether an appeal is filed, the deposited funds are available to be withdrawn by the property owner. It's important to note that the department only acquires property rights that are necessary for the project. I'll be happy to answer any questions about the right-of-way process during the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. And with that, I'll hand it back to Leslie. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jack. At this time, we are anticipating construction to begin in the spring of 2028 and to be completed in the fall of 2028 as well. We currently estimating a construction cost of approximately $2.85 million, which will be paid with 80% federal and 20% state funds. No funding will be required from the town. And please note that these are preliminary and they are subject to change. And now at this point, I will turn the presentation over to Mark Levesque, who will be the MC for the question and answer portion of tonight's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie, Connor, and Jack. As Leslie mentioned, my name is Mark Levesque. I'm project manager with VHB, and I'm going to be MC for the evening. First of all, we want to thank everybody for joining us, whether it be on Zoom or watching on YouTube or watching later on YouTube. The purpose of this meeting is to provide the public with an overview of the project, get feedback, and answer any questions you might have. With that being said, we're going to now have a live question and answer session with the design team, able to answer any questions you may have. There's 3 ways to ask a question, and I think Leslie already briefed you, but I'm going to remind you again. First is by email. It's dotproject70-119@ct.gov. Second is by voicemail. Phone number is 860-594-2020. And we ask that you include the project number with that voicemail. It's project 70-119. And then that makes sure it gets to the appropriate project team. And the third is this question and answer QA session on Zoom. There's a tab on your Zoom screen that says Q&A. Just click the tab and type your question and hit send. This is going to only be available during this live session, not after. If you're watching on YouTube, you can ask via email or by calling that number. All 3 of these I've posted to the chat. The email and voicemail is going to be available up until August 7th, 2025. That's 2 weeks after this meeting. So you can ask the question a week and a half from now, and we'll get back to you on that. There is a project webpage I do want to mention as well. We mentioned it earlier in the presentation. I posted that to the chat also. That's portal.ct.gov/DOT Lebanon 70701-119. And I kind of said a lot there, but again, it's DOT LEBANON 70-119. That's the website. So there's a lot of good information on that website, including a project email and voicemail numbers if you don't have them here. And an optional post-meeting survey, we'd appreciate if anyone could fill it out. That survey helps us get feedback and helps us to improve these meetings. Anyways, all of those are in the chat. I've posted them. We're going to open it up to questions now, and happy to answer any you may have. We'll give it a minute or two, just in case people are asking through the phone or email. We can probably try to answer that right now if we can check. Again, the entire project team's here available, design, rights of way. Happy to answer any questions you may have. We'll just give it another minute. I don't see any questions so far. And again, we're happy to answer questions up to the next 2 weeks through any of these ways to ask questions, whether it be by email, dotproject70-119@ct.gov, phone 860-594-2020, and make sure you leave the project number 70-119. And then also this Q&A right here. I think we're going to wrap up since I don't see any questions. I do want to also let everyone know that there's going to be a recording of this presentation available on YouTube after the meeting. And if you want, you could watch that presentation and then send an email or call through that phone number with the voicemail, and we will get back to you. We do want to thank you for taking your time to join us. We really appreciate you being here. Thank you and have a good night.